You know that feeling when you learned early on not to make too much noise about your needs. When you figured out how to let yourself in after school, how to reheat leftovers, how to stay out of the way while the adults handled their own storms. When independence wasn't a personality trait yet, it was just the atmosphere. There's a certain kind of person who doesn't panic easily. Who can sit with uncertainty without demanding reassurance? Who doesn't expect institutions to save them? Who tends to shrug before they complain? And sometimes that gets mistaken for indifference. People might call it detached, guarded, cynical, aloof. But underneath it, there's something far more textured. For a long time, this way of being has been misunderstood, especially in a culture that celebrates openness, branding, constant self-expression. The quieter, self-contained posture can look like disengagement. The dry humor can be misread as negativity. The refusal to overshare can be seen as emotional distance. But this isn't a flaw, it's a pattern. And there's more going on here than people realize. We're talking about the psychology of Generation X. This is the group that grew up between the analog and digital worlds, the latchkey kids. The children of rising divorce rates, economic recessions, shifting gender roles, and a cultural mood that often felt uncertain. They were raised in a time when supervision was lighter, expectations were ambiguous, and the future didn't come with a clear script. Psychologists who study attachment and resilience have long observed that children adapt not just to what parents say, but to what the environment requires. When resources are inconsistent, emotionally or practically, the nervous system learns to self-regulate quickly, to rely inward, to minimize needs. Research in developmental psychology shows that early autonomy, especially when it's not entirely voluntary, shapes how the brain responds to stress. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for problem-solving and inhibition, tends to get recruited early. Emotional reactions become filtered. Efficiency replaces expression. In simple terms, when no one is coming, you learn to come through for yourself. That's not bitterness. That's adaptation. And neuroscience backs this up. Repeated exposure to unpredictability can heighten sensitivity to false promises. The brain becomes skeptical of systems that overpromise and underdeliver. It prefers what's concrete, tangible, earned. This can look like cynicism from the outside, but inside, it's pattern recognition. If you grew up watching institutions fail, jobs disappear, relationships fracture, it makes sense that you would build a worldview that leans toward self-reliance, that you would question authority, that you would resist hype. It's not that you don't care, it's that you learned not to be naive. There's also something quieter happening at the emotional level. Many in this generation internalized the message, spoken or unspoken, that vulnerability wasn't particularly useful, that strength meant managing your own reactions, that "I'm fine" was often the most efficient answer. Over time, this becomes embodied. The nervous system gets used to compressing emotion instead of broadcasting it, not because emotion isn't there, but because it was rarely rewarded. And when newer generations speak openly about mental health, trauma, boundaries, it can feel unfamiliar. Not wrong, just foreign. The language of constant processing wasn't the language you were given. But here's the nuance. This way of being isn't better or worse than the generations before or after. It's simply wired differently. Every generation develops psychological traits in response to its context. Boomers adapted to post-war optimism and hierarchy. Millennials to digital acceleration and economic instability. Gen Z to hyperconnectivity and constant visibility. Gen X adapted to ambiguity. No one wiring is superior. No one wiring is superior. Each carries strengths, each carries costs. And here's the paradox that rarely gets named. The independence that makes you capable can also make you invisible. If you enjoy psychology-related videos like this, please like and subscribe to the channel.